Alright, these are my way too early NFL predictions. In this, I'm going to go over the division winners for every division, as well as the 3 wildcard teams that I believe will make the playoffs in each conference, and then I'm going to go over the NFL honors and my predictions for the 2024-25 NFL season. So without further ado, let's go right into it. In order to keep this video on the briefer side, I'm not going to try and talk too long about the division winners, but we're going to start with the AFC East, and in my opinion, the winner of the AFC East is going to remain the Buffalo Bills. I think everyone is overreacting with the amount of players they lost from their last season team. I think pretty much everybody they lost was old and already past their primes. You can argue that Diggs is still in his prime, but last season he wasn't looking the best, to be honest. But you still have a lot of young talent on the Bills. I think getting younger is exactly what they need to do, and as long as Josh Allen is on that team, they are going to be competitive. Pretty much, other than the Jets, the entire AFC East got worse. I mean, I guess the Patriots might have gotten a little better, but the Dolphins lost probably more impactful players than Buffalo did. So it's going to be an interesting case in the AFC East, but for now, my money is on Buffalo. Moving on to the NFC East, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles to take the division because there has to be a different division winner every year in that division. It's just science. But on a real note, the Cowboys definitely got a bit worse, and the Eagles have kept most of their core together. I mean, a lot of the key players are still there, and I think the Eagles are too talented to play like they did at the end of last season. I think they'll turn it around, and they'll be back on top of the NFC East. The AFC West winner is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think I need to elaborate more. When it comes to the NFC West, it pains me to say it, but it is the 49ers division to lose. The past 2 seasons, they have been by far the best team in that division, and I think Seattle and LA can kind of keep it competitive, but as of right now, the 49ers are still a juggernaut of the entire league, a perennial contender, and I think they're going to find themselves with a 3rd straight division title. Now moving on to the AFC North, I think this is the first pretty controversial answer I'm going to be giving, and I think it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals going back on top of that division. I think the Ravens lost a lot of key performers on that team, some even going to the Bengals like Geno Stone, and I think a healthy Joe Burrow is just that much of a difference maker for Cincinnati. This is definitely reliant on if T. Higgins stays with the Bengals for this coming season, but I think they did really well in the draft, addressing the offensive line, doing what they need to do, and they still have a lot of talented players. I think you can pretty much say anyone can win the AFC North, but my money is going on the Bengals. NFC North is another division that could be a lot closer than a lot of people think, but I'm going to stick with the Detroit Lions. They were the NFC runner-ups last season. Not much has changed with the team. You can argue they've only gotten better. Their young guys are developing more. I do think the Packers are very much on the rise, and the Bears could surprise people, and even Minnesota, depending on how J.J. McCarthy plays, if it's Sam Darnold. But the Lions, they were a monster last season. Exceeded expectations that were already pretty high after how they finished the prior season, and I think they are definitely a contender to win that division and even the entire conference. Detroit is a scary team, and they are my pick to win the NFC North. Now we got another division where all 4 teams could very realistically win the division, as they all got better in this offseason. But I'm going to stick with the Texans because they won it last season and they made some big moves, acquiring Diggs, Danielle Hunter. They didn't have a first-round pick this year, but their young guys are developing. D'Amico Ryans is an excellent coach. CJ Stroud is, well, already a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. And the Texans are going to be a force this season. The Titans got better. The Jaguars got better. The Colts got better. But the Houston Texans are just a step above them. And I think the rest of the league needs to put on notice, because I think Houston is a problem. For the NFC South, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm saying the Atlanta Falcons are winning that division. The Buccaneers won it last year, and a playoff game too, but against an Eagles team that was kind of just, down bad. But Atlanta, it was clear they needed a quarterback, and now they have 2. But obviously Kirk Cousins is going to be starting. He was an MVP candidate before he got hurt last year. And now he's going to have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson on that offense. And a pretty damn good offensive line. I mean, Chris Lindstrom is one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. And they have a new coach. They're not going to be held back by Arthur Smith anymore. I think Atlanta, they still have some holes on that roster, but the division really is not that strong, in my opinion. And I think if Atlanta plays to its standards, they should win the division with ease. Alright, now we're going to get into the 3 wildcard teams per conference. Starting with the AFC, the Ravens are definitely one of them. I'm not going to say their fall off is going to be that hard. They're definitely still a playoff team. Lamar Jackson coming off an MVP season. That's a no-brainer. But the last 2 spots, you can make an argument for over half the conference. The AFC is very, very loaded. But the 2 teams I am going with are the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts are going to be very good. I think Anthony Richardson has a lot of potential, and we'll finally, hopefully, get to see a full season of him if he can take down the reckless running a little bit. And they have a good defense. They have a young, great coach, Shane Steichen. That team is going to be shocking a lot of people. They were close to winning the division last year already with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. And they got a great pickup in Laiatu Latu in the draft, and he was the first defensive player taken off the board, addressing a huge position in need. I think the Colts are going to be a problem, and I think this is the year the Jets end their playoff drought. I was not sold on them last year before the whole Aaron Rodgers injury began with at all, but they just continue to get better. I'm going to put my faith in them, and if they are below par again this season, Robert Saleh's head coaching gig has got to be on the hot seat, which is something I never thought I'd be saying after watching that 2019 49ers defense where Robert Saleh was just leading a juggernaut of young defensive players. I knew he was going to be a future head coach with ease. I think the Jets have a very complete team. They have an amazing defense. They're trying to get better on the offensive line, which was their Achilles heel last year. Obviously, other than quarterback, we got 4 snaps of Aaron Rodgers last year. So let's see what the Jets can do with a healthy team. This is obviously very contingent on Rodgers' health, but I'm going to believe in the Jets. And a lot of people are probably going to be upset that I am leaving the Dolphins out of this, but I'm honestly not convinced with Tua, and I'm not convinced with that defense. I think the Dolphins have been a bit reliant on Tyreek Hill a lot these past 2 seasons, He is obviously probably the best receiver in the NFL. You can make an argument for others. There's some other teams like the Steelers and Browns, Jaguars, that you can all make an argument to make it in as well. There's only 3 spots. So I'm going to stick with the guys I said. Probably be way off because, you know, the season doesn't start for several months. But hey, I'm an optimist, and I think the Jets are going to finally make the playoffs. Now, the NFC is a little less convoluted when it comes to the amount of teams I had to go through to figure out the 3 that I think will be in the wild card, but I ultimately settled on the Cowboys, Seahawks, and Rams to make the playoffs in the NFC. I think the Cowboys is pretty self-explanatory. They're still a very good team. They did lose some stuff, but I mean, Dak Prescott's still a great quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 receiver in the NFL. Micah Parsons is a perennial defensive player of the year candidate, and Big D is never an easy place to play in. So Dallas is my first spot. And then the Seahawks and Rams, both NFC West teams. I'm a Seahawks fan, so you could take anything I say about them with a grain of salt, but I think the head coaching switch with Mike Macdonald is going to fix a lot of their defensive issues. It probably still won't be perfect, but they still have a lot of talent on that team, and in a weaker conference, they can definitely realistically sneak into the playoffs. And then you have the Los Angeles Rams, and I'm not going to count out a Sean McVay-led team as long as everyone stays healthy. Yes, they lost Aaron Donald, but they have Kobe Turner, who was a finalist for Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. They drafted Jared Verse. Their defensive line is still probably going to be okay. It's not going to be as good as when Donald was there, but on offense, Puka Nacua is going to try and go off of that crazy rookie season he had. You still have Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, Matthew Stafford. The Rams have some talent. They added Tre'Davious White. They brought back Darius Williams. Yes, that's who it is. And, you know, they still have a solid core. I think you could definitely squeeze the Packers in here somewhere. I think they have a lot of potential to be better. And if you really want to be an optimist, you can argue the Bears, or Tampa Bay. But I'm going to go with Dallas, Seattle, and Los Angeles for the wild card teams in the NFC in no particular order. Alright, now I'm going to go over the primary NFL honors awards other than Walter Payton Man of the Year, because that is impossible to predict, and I don't want to downplay anyone that doesn't deserve it. We're going to start with Offensive Rookie of the Year, and for me, I'm going with the number 2 pick out of LSU, Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels has been put in a great position to succeed. You have Cliff Kingsbury as your offensive coordinator. You have Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. Looking at Jaden Daniels' stats last season in college, he had a 10-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. 10-to-1. Coming off a Heisman Trophy season, Daniels is an older rookie, which has its pros and cons, but it means he's more NFL ready, I would say, than some of the other quarterback prospects. Obviously, you can make an argument for Caleb Williams. You can make an argument for Drake May, J.J. McCarthy. You can make an argument for quite a bit of guys in this draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. But I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels. I know quarterback isn't always the pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. In fact, only 4 of the last 10 winners have been quarterbacks. But I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels. I think this kid's got a lot of potential. Jaden Daniels for OROY. Alright, now we've got Defensive Rookie of the Year. And for me, it comes to 3 people, in my opinion. Honorable mentions to Byron Murphy and Cooper DeJean, but in my opinion, the winner of Defensive Rookie of the Year is going to be Minnesota Vikings draft pick Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner is put in a great situation to try and be the successor to Danielle Hunter. And I think this guy has a lot of talent in the NFL. And the primary reason I'm going with him is because he's an edge rusher. And when you look at the previous Defensive Rookie of the Year winners, it is pretty telling what the trend says. You had Will Anderson, last year was an edge rusher. And then you had Ahmad Gardner, the year prior, who was a corner. But then, Micah Parsons, Chase Young, Nick Bosa, all edge rushers. You had Shaquille Leonard the year prior, who was a linebacker who was known for having sacks. And then you had Lattimore the year prior, and then you're back to another edge rusher, and Joey Bosa. Edge rushers typically have the best chance at winning big awards for defense. You even look at Defensive Player of the Year. Stephon Gilmore is still the last non-edge rusher to win the award. Well, not necessarily edge rusher, defensive lineman, we'll say, because Aaron Donald is kind of an anomaly. But still, the primary reason Aaron Donald wins Defensive Player of the Year a lot is because he gets a lot of sacks. And I think that Dallas Turner can do that for Minnesota, and he is my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now we're going to talk about Comeback Player of the Year. There are a lot of potential candidates. You have guys like Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Rodgers. They can all definitely win this award if they get back to the players they were before they were hurt. But in my opinion, I am going to go with a pretty ambitious pick, and I'm going to say the 2024 Comeback Player of the Year is going to be Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has kind of fallen out of the media for the past 2 seasons, because he tore his ACL 2 years ago, and then he came back, and he honestly looked not bad with a very limited receiving room. And now the Cardinals go and get him Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the greatest wide receiver prospect since Calvin Johnson. And we all know what Calvin Johnson turned into, and we know what Kyler Murray is capable of doing with a true number 1 receiver. And no discredit to DeAndre Hopkins, but I think MHJ is going to be the best weapon that Kyler Murray has ever had. And I think Kyler Murray is set to have a huge bounce back season. Everyone is going to remember who he is. So I'm going to say Kyler Murray wins the award. There's obviously plenty of other worthy candidates, but I'm going to go on an ambitious limb and go with the man out of Oklahoma. Stepping away from players, we're going to talk about Coach of the Year. Typically, first-year head coaches have a very strong chance to win the award, as if they can come in and turn a team around, that just shows the impact that they had on that team. And some notable first-year coaches are Jim Harbaugh, Mike Macdonald, Dave Canales, Dan Quinn. Well, Dan Quinn was a coach for the Falcons, but this is his first year with the Commanders. And out of those 4, I think the guy with the best chances is Mike Macdonald. We saw what Mike Macdonald did with the Ravens last season, and I think there's a lot of pieces on that Seattle defense that Mike Macdonald is going to try and cook with. They drafted Byron Murphy, who was the best defensive tackle prospect in the draft by a pretty significant margin, and if Mike Macdonald can make him look like how Justin Madubuike looked last season, it's going to be a problem for a lot of teams. The Ravens last season were also interested in drafting Devin Witherspoon, a guy that Mike Macdonald looked very high on. So I can only imagine how he is going to explode onto the scene next season after an impressive rookie campaign. And if the Seahawks, who have been one of the worst defensive team the past several seasons, can have significant improvement against 2 of the best head coaches in the NFL, 2 of the best offensive minds, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. We saw what Mike Macdonald was able to do against the 49ers last year in Santa Clara. So if everything can go correctly for the Seahawks defensively, I think Mike Macdonald is a very strong candidate for Coach of the Year, and he is my pick to win the award. Alright, we have 3 awards left: Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. We're going to start with Defensive Player of the Year because I'm going with the same person I say every single season, TJ Watt. And the stats do not lie with this man. The Steelers are 1-10 without TJ Watt, and they are 71-34-2 with TJ Watt. You want to talk about impact a player has on a team? TJ Watt is that for Pittsburgh. TJ Watt, in my opinion, is easily the most complete defensive player in the league. He can do a lot, and he is definitely a top 2 edge rusher in the league, bar none. He probably should have won the award last year. He probably should have won the award 4 years ago. He won it 3 years ago when he tied the all-time sacks record. And yeah, TJ Watt is an animal. TJ Watt is a problem. TJ Watt is a difference maker. Now, some honorable mentions. You obviously have guys like Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, that are going to be huge contenders for the award. You want to look at other positions like corner, you have guys like Pat Surtain, Ahmad Gardner. Like I said, Devin Witherspoon could potentially have a career season. Deron Bland just broke the pick-6 season record last year. Could he bounce back from what he did? There's a lot. Linebackers, Roquan Smith. There's a lot of potential players. But in my opinion, TJ Watt is going to have another amazing season, and he is going to win his 2nd Defensive Player of the Year trophy. Alright, Offensive Player of the Year is by far my most ambitious take for this upcoming season. When you look at the potential candidates, you got guys like Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, the obvious guys. But I'm going to go with a guy completely out of left field that I think is going to explode for a monster season. And the man I am referring to is Garrett Wilson. I think this kid is so talented. Garrett Wilson has been playing with Zach Wilson and a bunch of other bums at quarterback for these past 2 seasons, and he put up 1,100 yards in his rookie season and another 1,000 yards last season. Now he's going to have Aaron Rodgers, hopefully, throwing him the ball the entire season. Obviously, this pick is very, very contingent on Rodgers' health, but we have seen what Garrett Wilson is capable of doing. He's able to make catches like this.
Garrett Wilson, wow! What a catch! Touchdown, Jets! That kid's amazing. There is no way he caught that.
Garrett Wilson won Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. No, I'm not salty. That Kenneth Walker should have won it. However, Garrett Wilson has shown so much promise, has not been given the greatest of opportunities, but this is it. He's got Mike Williams now, a reliable wide receiver too, to line up on the other side of him, free up some space for him, take away some of the pressure, and I think Garrett Wilson is primed for at least 1,500 yards this coming season. That might seem like a very aggressive take, but I believe in this Ohio State legend, and he is going to have an amazing season and possibly Offensive Player of the Year. And now we have the Best Quarterback Award, the MVP. So, Lamar Jackson's MVP season last year was obviously a Mickey Mouse MVP. There was no other potential candidates, and Lamar obviously didn't even have the best season he's had. This year, however, I think that's going to change. I think there's your obvious candidates. You got Patrick Mahomes. Duh. You got Josh Allen. Duh. You got Lamar Jackson. You have Aaron Rodgers, who's already won 4 MVPs and might have the Offensive Player of the Year on his team. However, none of those guys are named Coleridge Bernard Stroud IV, who I have winning the NFL's Most Valuable Player award. This kid is primed to build off of the best rookie season by a quarterback ever. He's going to hopefully have a healthy Tank Dell for an entire season. He's going to have Nico Collins, who he turned into an 1,000-yard receiver. Oh yeah, he has Stephon Diggs now on that team. You still have talented running backs. You had Joe Mixon. You have Damian Pierce. You have a great offensive line highlighted by Laramie Tunsil. You have Dalton Schultz still. CJ Stroud was able to do all of this with a defensive-minded head coach in DeMeco Ryans. The Texans' defense has only gotten better, and if CJ Stroud can lead the Texans to like a 13-win season, there should be no debate that he is in the MVP conversation. CJ Stroud is an incredibly talented, incredibly accurate passer. He just knows the right throws to make, and I think of him very, very fondly. And I think he is going to win MVP. But that is it for my way too early NFL predictions. I'm sure they're all going to be incorrect, except TJ Watt. That one I'm confident on. But yes, that is it. And thank you for watching me talk about random NFL stuff for 30 minutes. And I hope y'all are doing great.